and welcome to Fine is a Four-Letter Word. My guest today is Amy Flo-Yo. Welcome to the show,
Happy to be here,
Amy.
Lori. Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, I'm eager to get into this conversation. So let's jump right in with the first question of what were the beliefs and values that you were raised with that contributed to you becoming the young adult that you did?
Um, I was totally brought up in the traditional 70s, 80s working family home, latchkey kid, if you will. Um, we were home by ourselves for that hour after school. It was the playing outside till the streetlights came on, you know, spaghetti Wednesdays, very traditional
Yeah.
American, New England American home. Um, Definitely filled with love, laughter, all of those things, but also a fairly strict, I don't want to call it, like maybe work ethic and an independence, I guess, because of how we were brought up. But there
Mm-hmm.
was a lot of, yep, it happened, move on. Like that constantly moving forward was definitely the vibe of the
Yeah.
house. Yep.
Did you have emotions? Because I asked that because a lot of people that I've talked to on the show were raised to not have emotions, like they didn't even know what emotions
Right.
were.
It was, we had emotions, but not fully represented. You know, there were the days where you knew not to poke the bear, right? Like you knew something was going
Uh-huh.
on and that's how it was. And then there were days where, so you understood the vibe of the room at the time for sure. We were able to express, good days, bad days. Um, but the emotional expression, yeah, I would say was very primary, very elementary. Happy, sad, angry, like that's it. Like very preschool level emotion.
Okay.
We didn't get into the deep dive of things. Um, so as we talked about before, my father passed away when I was in high school. So at like 15. So fairly young, same thing about like not talking about the emotions. Obviously, there was a grief and a sadness that was
Yeah.
not denied or glossed over. But even though my brother was 18, I was 15, we were old enough to understand. We never had that sit down conversation of, okay, what does this mean
Mm.
now? How are you feeling about? We all dealt with it on our own, in our own way.
Mm-hmm.
There was no um, emotion, as you say, shared at that time. Besides,
Oh,
we were all sad, of course, and all dealing with it on our own. But the way we looked at it is we were all dealing with our own thing, and I feel that we didn't want to burden everybody else with our thing. So we
mm-hmm.
just that was kind of how we were brought up. Like it's your thing. You you handle your things. Yeah.
Right. Individually, you can, yeah, figure it, like you said earlier, figure
Mhm.
it out. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, feel it, move on.
Exactly. Yeah. So obviously it
Okay.
happened. It was there. We
Yeah.
all understood that. So we didn't have to talk about it. It
Uh-huh.
was how it was
Uh-huh.
processed. We
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
understood.
Do you wish it had been, like in hindsight, do you wish it had been different? Like,
In
how would you
hindsight,
have wanted it to be? Like, if you went back to that
mhm,
child, that 15-year-old.
yeah. In hindsight, yes. I wish there was a little more um, discussion and openness around the ups
Mm-hmm.
and downs of it. And I think it would have made a huge difference because I'm now almost 50 and still unprogramming the handle it yourself, right? And taking care
Yeah.
of everyone else, you know. Um,
Did you feel like you had to take care of everyone else after that happened?
yes, for sure. And I'm sure my brother, as the now oldest, male figure in the family, all of those things, I'm sure, putting words in his mouth, but I'm sure he had similar feelings too. In
Mm-hmm.
both of us
Mm-hmm.
trying to take care of everything and take care of each other, if we had talked about that a little bit more and we're more open about that, um, I'm sure it would have taken our relationships and our, in a different direction. Yeah.
Yeah. So since you just what's the word I'm looking for? Let's see, we'll cut
Yeah.
this part out. What's a word? Like you mentioned, but you didn't mention. You indicated. You
Inferenced? I don't know the word.
insin.
Alluded to?
I don't know. Alluded to. There we go. Thank you. Since you just alluded to that that not processing or having wished it was different affecting you as you got older, how did that play out?
In so many ways. And again, as I'm on the other side of my adulthood and doing more, I don't want to call it like woo woo, but self reflection, deeper work, better understanding, all of those things that we do when we get to this point in our life, I'm looking back and seeing how what I thought was just who I was and who I am
Mm-hmm.
was actually such a programmed response based on my environment, right? That at a very young age, even before my father's passing, but through his illness and everything, immediately became, even though I was the youngest, immediately became the doer, the caretaker, the
Mm-hmm.
the fixer of things. Um, and not that I never shy away from a confrontation, but we also don't stir them up, right? Like we do what we tend
Mm-hmm.
to do.
Mm-hmm. Right. If you get dragged into it, you're not backing down,
But right, so
but
just
you're not
that very
looking for it.
proactive approach to living. So because that all came up,
Okay.
God, like in middle school, like I said, it's just always quote unquote who I've been. But now I realize, like you were saying, how that impacted who I became and why I am that way or was that way.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Mm-hmm.
I always fell into that caregiver, take responsibility, not only for myself, but for everyone else, which is huge. Um, that moved into, like I said, I'm very self aware of like my therapy needs and all those things of like, I go and be like, okay, this is why this happened and this is why I'm like this, blah, 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 blah. Like, I get it. I get where the roots are. Um, but then I got married for our generation fairly early, um, at 24, and had children right away. My first child was born, um, had a birth mishap and is severely disabled. So looking at that now, I can now say I've spent, more than half my life playing that,
Mm-hmm.
not that it's a role, but a very non-traditional parent role. Again, a caretaker, taking on
Mm-hmm.
responsibilities for everybody else, um, pushing, fighting, not in that aggressive way, but right, like always like look, yeah,
Right, but for her
right,
best
looking
interest.
whether it was school or services or equipment or resources, whatever it was, you're always hustling. There's definitely an energy around that, and that we
Mm-hmm.
didn't have, even with my son. I have two children, so even with my son who came after, it's a very non-traditional parental relationship because I'm not just mom, right? Like it's the care, like
Right. You have to be an
yeah, and
advocate.
managing the house. A typical household is still kind of everyone. All the moms know, right? Managing your household is definitely a job and feels like you're running a business, but then you layer that
Mm-hmm.
with legit staff and budgets in and out of your house for care and nursing and insurance, all of the things. Um, yeah,
Right.
so now as my children are in their late teens, early 20s, we're just now getting to those relationship pieces in having those
Mm-hmm.
conversations, um, which is why I was so drawn to you and your fuck being fine when you said, how long were things fine? And for me, things were fine for decades. And that's how I
Uh-huh.
would look at it as, God, why is this not, why am I not content? Never mind happy, but why am I not content here? But I go, well, everything's fine, right? We have,
Right, because you didn't want to stop to look at it because you didn't even really have
right,
time to stop to look at it. You had stuff that needed to get
right,
done. I can't like be stuck in self-analysis here. I have things to
right.
do
And
to
again, like,
keep all the
yeah,
balls in
and
the air.
she's disabled. That's never going to change. So move forward, right? Like that was the
Back to your
right. Like,
childhood
yeah, it is
training
what it
there.
is. We figured it out. We move forward. And then I would look and go, the bills are paid, the roof over our head, food on the table. Most of the time, nobody was in the hospital, right? Like those types of things. And even when someone was in the hospital, because my son has a cardiac issue as well, so we're constantly in rotation. Um, but it was like, it's all fine. It's fine. Don't worry about it. It's fine. Like that's,
Mm-hmm.
and now for these past few years of, as I've been deconstructing that, um, you're right. It was not a crisis where many other people would probably consider a lot of that a crisis, actually. Like, it's
Right.
sorry,
You had a different
perspective.
perspective. Uh-huh.
But you're right. It gave me, and I think that's part of that where truly is innate who I am, is that silver lining, always an upside. That's a big piece of how I look at things. And even when the big
Mm-hmm.
things happen, I have like everything is figure outable, right? Like that's
Yes, to quote Marie
exactly like
Forleo,
every
yeah. But you probably coined that word before she did, I'm guessing.
probably like there's a lot of things going. Really, I could have written that down and rode that coattail my whole life because yes, yeah,
There you go.
I was Marie Kondoing before we even knew she was alive. So again,
Uh-huh.
keeping things organized and set and in a medical home, yeah, we don't have a lot of tchotchkes. We don't have a lot of things lying around. So um, just
That saves time for
exactly,
dusting.
well, yeah, dusting and breaking things and moving things and exactly. I'm
Right, you
like, I
don't
don't have
need
any of
to.
that stuff. But it's so funny, right? That looking back, seeing that by doing the wonderful job I did, like I say that kind of
Mm-hmm.
sarcastically, but you know, but not like a lot of I know people.
Right, give
Right,
yourself credit for what you
yeah,
did
I know people in
accomplish. Mm-hmm.
similar situations that have not been fortunate enough to live a life and survive them, in intact,
Mm-hmm.
mentally, financially, relationship wise. I totally understand that. So again, I would look at that and go, "Wow, we're really fortunate. So everything's fine." Like, you
Mm-hmm.
know,
Right. Right. This is the thing when you convince yourself that it's not so bad because in
right?
comparison,
You know,
which isn't what's that quote? Comparison is the killer of
yeah.
happiness,
Compare and
something like
despair,
that.
exactly. Um, because my husband didn't leave me. Where I know a lot of my friends in my
Mm-hmm.
disability circle, dad's gone. Um, Things like that, where my child, we had some rough
Yeah.
patches where she was hospitalized for long periods of time. But again, comparatively, she's severely disabled
Mm-hmm.
but very healthy. So I look in all of
Mm-hmm.
those things, but then I realized by taking, by being who I was, quote unquote, um, no one was taking care of me. And truly
Mm-hmm.
understanding that, how, like you're saying, how many of the emotions and those needs were not just walled off or blocked off, like not even there, that I'm still trying to
Yeah.
dig and peel away to even acknowledge a feeling. Like I'm still working on a lot of that. That
Yeah.
yes, you're right. I
Got it.
needed, or I need to be. um, held, supported, right? It's not always about give me the answer or help me figure. It's like
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you just need to be. And like you said, we were
Right.
always so busy figuring shit out that for, decades now, I've never just been. So when everyone says, like,
Which is the whole point of being
right,
human, right? We're human. You've heard this before. Human beings, not human doings. I'm like, yeah, I got it. Okay, what do I do
yeah,
next?
exactly. Tell me what to do, and I'll be great. But I want my checklist.
Right.
I want my checklist. I even work
Right.
with some of my,
I need my things to
yeah,
accomplish. I need to, yeah, right, check them off. What was the thing? Was there a specific incident or something happened that made you stop and go, okay, wait, fine is not
yeah.
fine, and I need to allow myself the space, the time,
Mm,
the like give myself this gift of figuring out, uncovering, digging this stuff out now.
yeah, I don't want to say there wasn't a minute moment. It was um, a few years back now when my daughter was hospitalized. She was in the hospital for about 9 months, and she's nonverbal and full doesn't so she's a quad, so she doesn't use her hands, like she can't feed herself, all of those things. So when she's hospitalized,
Mm-hmm.
even as a young adult, someone has to be there pretty much 24/7. So I
Okay.
pretty much lived at the hospital. My husband would come Friday night after work, and swap out until Saturday night or Sunday morning. We literally had the swap bags of I'll
Mm-hmm.
take all this home, you come in, then I bring everything back. But we did that for about 9 months. So
Wow.
after all of that, I had gained 40-ish pounds, and lost my career, and was transitioned home with her full time for care, all of those things. And that's when it was, well, who are you? Like, and now what? What's next? Okay, we need to move
Mm-hmm.
forward, but to what?
Yeah.
And that's when I noticed, like, wow. Number one, how did we both have full time jobs and do, like, now that I wasn't doing all the doing, I was like, how did I
Mm-hmm.
ever do that?
Mm-hmm.
Because at that point, I was
Right.
barely functioning on so many levels. And as we all know, especially here in the United States, how tied our identity is to our work. So losing
Oh yeah.
a 20-year identity, right? Who was I? Who am
Yeah.
I? Like, that's when that, I want to say, journey kind of started. Was when I had the big,
Okay.
it was a big hiccup. It was a big earthquake of 9 months.
Yeah, I would say, yeah, earthquake is a better
Yeah, I
term than
had to,
hiccup.
everything fell apart, good, bad, or indifferent, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't just
Mm-hmm.
keep getting up and doing it every day. So I, and I look at it, that was the opportunity to
Mm-hmm.
reevaluate, reassess, and do all the things. And that's when I realized, wow, I really wasn't, quote unquote, living my best life. Like there is so much, there's got to be more than this, like the song, right? There's got to be more. This is
Mm-hmm.
not it. And now, how am I? And for those listening can't hear, but my Zoom background is "Find Your Joy," um,
Mm-hmm.
and that's it. Is like, if it ain't joyful, we ain't doing it. And I have a coach, and that's one of her taglines, and that's truly how I look at
Okay.
everything now.
What was the first step that you took? Was the first step hire a coach? What was the first step when you went, okay, this can't be all there is. I need to
Right.
figure this out.
Um,
Again, figure outable, but what is that first
yeah,
step
for
that you
me, it
needed to
was,
take or that
and
you
again,
did
and
take?
I'm a doer, so it was a lot of um, those wall size sticky post-it notes with, and again, because I had a career as, like, an executive and a manager and a um, business strategist, I understood the pros and the cons and the questions to ask, and I was a mediator and a facilitator, so I went through all of those activities for myself. but you can't do
Mm-hmm.
them for yourself. And as I should, we know this as coaches and as facilitators, you can't see your own blind spots. That's why they're called blind spots. So, yeah.
Yes, and you bring and you bring up a good point. Like even coaches
Right.
need coaches. Like because you can't see your blind spots. You can't see
Yeah. All of those
the
cliches
forest through the trees.
are cliches for a reason.
The trees through
Yeah,
the forest.
exactly.
What is it?
You can't see the
You
forest
can't
through
see
the
the forest
trees,
through
and
the
because
trees,
yeah,
I
but
think. Yeah, okay.
it's so true. So when I decided, okay, I'm not applying for jobs, I was doing temp work and doing, just things to be flexible enough
Mhm.
with scheduling and income and everything. When I decided I'm going into business for myself, what am I going to do? How's that going to look? Blah 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 blah.
Cuz that doesn't take very much time.
Well, it really, like, again, as and honestly, that was less than a year of like, yeah, this I ain't doing this anymore. Screw this, like screw this ain't working. And that, like I said, I kept reflecting back to, wow, how was I as successful as I was? Um,
Well, and then were you beating yourself up for not being able to handle more now at this point because you were
yeah,
like,
mhm,
well, before this, I was doing all this
yeah,
stuff, and now how am I so
right.
incapacitated
And
now?
I worked with some, for lack of a better way to classify it, more spiritual guides, if you will, more kind of mental health,
Hmm.
spiritual side of things, um, saying like, yeah, this is decades of trauma, whether you call it big T, little t, all those phrases, but this is
Hmm.
decades
Doesn't matter.
catching up with you. And again, you need to just be,
Hmm.
you need to let it pass, you need all of that work. So once still, obviously that's an ongoing process, but once I had a handle on that and I guess an understanding is better. Once I understood
Hmm.
that, and I really focused in on, okay, now what am I going to do? We need, yes, we still have a household to support and all of those things. And I decided to go in after doing the pros and the cons and all of my own assessments, determined I was going to go into this the retreat business. This is my passion. This is what I want to do, based on my zone of genius, all the things. I then hired a coach, which was no easy feat. So I put this.
You mean a business coach because you had the spiritual
Yeah,
coaches
I
first,
had
and
like what I
then
would call
now you are ready
those
for the
spiritual
business. Okay,
supports, if
gotcha.
you will. I didn't do a quote unquote program. I just connected with the right people. But finding a business coach, um, which you would think, because it's amazing now. And I was going to say, even just a few years ago, there weren't as many choices as there are now. There's some great programs out there. There's also some crap out there.
Hmm.
So I learned very quick, and I did like everybody else did. Some things were great, some things were not so great, but I don't look at it as wasted money. I looked at it as a learned experience, you know.
Yeah, and to the point of everybody has to find what
Yeah,
works for them because something that didn't work for you could be a program that would work for
absolutely.
someone else. But that's why we have to go through these experiences to
Mhm.
know. You don't know if you
Exactly.
don't.
And anyone who's in a transition and looking for some type of coach support, do not be afraid to ask coaches the hard questions. Don't be, oh, well, they have the training, they've been doing this, they've seen success. So I like, kind of like a doctor. I don't know. I question my
Hmm.
being in the
Right.
medical. I, I go back all the
Yeah.
time. Like, no, 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 we're not doing that. To the point where most people,
Well, sometimes you don't even know enough to know what questions to ask,
yeah,
though.
but
And I'm sure with all the years you've had in the medical, like
mhm,
working in it, like in the beginning, you didn't necessarily know what
right.
questions to
But I
ask.
always say, again, like if you're going for a business coach, ask. I ask for their numbers, because there are a lot of coaches touting
Hmm.
the whatever you want
Hmm.
to call it, 5-figure months and blah blah blah, that aren't making
Right.
their own 5-figure months. There's a big difference between revenue, income, and
Yeah.
profit. So ask a business coach
Yes.
who might have $1 million in revenue. Sounds great, but they might have $950,000 in expenses and costs and everything else. So they're not very
Right.
profitable and not making an income. Um, So that's what I like I said, push back a little because coaching is an investment. And again, it's been very
Mm-hmm.
successful for me. I have found my team and my right coaches, and it has made all the difference. I can't, especially in a travel based business with the pandemic and everything that happened, um, I've actually grown my business 75% during a pandemic
Wow.
in a travel based business. So, again, it says a
In
lot
travel.
about
Yeah.
having the right people around you, and don't be afraid to ask the hard questions or ask for, like, again, a sample, a sample and a call and all of those things.
That's that's a really good point that you just made that you might not even be aware of having the right people around you. So whether you're talking about in a business sense, as far as business coaches, people on your team to help you run your business, you have the right people helping you in terms of
Mm-hmm.
medical care for your
Mm-hmm.
daughter. Like in every aspect, having the right people
Yeah,
around you
absolutely.
is a key component to
Yeah. And again,
success.
and I think being, I keep going back to, I was fortunate enough to have all these horrible things happen because it did teach me a lot. And we didn't even get into like my career issues and, you know, my own medical, like all the things. Everybody's got all the things, right? But we didn't even get into a lot of that. But I was fortunate enough to, number one, because I think of my upbringing, have a perspective to look at it as an opportunity. I know a lot of people fear change, those types of things, and I never understood that, even from when I was really, really little. I always look change as an opportunity, right? For growth, for change, for everything. I love change. Change it up. Um,
That's amazing that you
yeah, like
have that
that's that.
that
I'm all,
perspective.
we've been talking about moving, and my husband doesn't want to move until he has another job, and I'm all like, sell everything, pack it up, let's go. I'm like, we'll figure it out. Again, we'll figure it out. It's good. Let's
Right.
go.
Yeah.
That's very much who I am. There's no such thing as a crisis. And
Mhm.
even in the worst situations, like I said, that's being human. That's part of the experience. It's all how you look at it. It truly is, attitude over experience.
That is unusual. You know that. Give yourself
I
credit
know,
for
but
that.
exactly. Thank you. But yeah, people, and that's one of the reasons I do what I do. And I'm really good at what I do
Mhm.
and stand out at what I do.
Which is what? Cuz
Oh,
I know what you do, but people
I am
listening don't
a
know what you do.
retreat concierge. So bringing together um, communities for coaches, leaders, practitioners, however you define yourself. I, you do your zone of genius and share your magic. So those ripples all go out into, raise the vibration of humanity. However you look at it, everybody has a gift to share. I give you all the pieces to make that happen, and you just pack and go. I create the retreat, the space, the location, the budget, all of it. Um, and because there's no such thing as a crisis, stuff happens obviously, but we figure it out, we move forward. I hold that space for that transformation to happen. So I'm a partner in
Yeah,
that.
I love that. I was talking to somebody earlier today and I told them, I said, yeah, Amy is when I start doing gratitude retreats, which I will, and it will not be that long. Like it's probably less than a year. I'm like, Amy's going to manage them for me. Because I don't want to have to
Right.
do any of that part. That's not my area of genius.
Yep.
That's
And
hers.
that's
So
exactly it.
let's put that out there right now. Everybody listening, gratitude retreats,
It's going
those
to
are
be fun,
coming.
right? And it's going to be fun
Yeah.
because you bring that, you raise and make those transformations for those individuals. And then it's, the commercial, then those individuals go out and they're living a
Mhm.
better life, however I don't want to put spiritual words out there, but
Right.
they're living in a better energy,
Yeah.
and that ripples out. And we need thousands and millions of those leaders out there
Yeah.
making those ripples, because when those ripples all start to touch each other, that's when the world, if you will, society, the paradigms, things will truly shift and change. And
Right. It has to reach that breaking point isn't the right word. That's
but
because that's
it
like
is
kind of a
you're right,
negative
it is that
connotation, but it has to reach that
the tipping point.
that tipping
Yeah,
point.
like
Perfect.
of
Yes.
and I think, again, I don't minimize anything, not to minimize the pandemic, but there's also been some amazing things that have happened through the pandemic.
Amazing things. Almost so this podcast
Mm-hmm.
came from that time, and almost every single guest I've had on this podcast, this has come up about what has been
Yeah.
created
Mm-hmm.
because of, maybe not because of, but
Mm-hmm.
during this pandemic time that was very likely would not have
Yeah.
been birthed if not for
And
the pandemic. So
spiritually,
yes.
religion, faith, whatever you believe and however, but I look at it as just a larger source. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I don't care how you look at it. If you go back in history, and I just got back from Egypt, so we were going way back. You know, I go to Egypt fairly often with my retreats. So I know
Mm-hmm.
some way BC history and how things have happened. There are these cycles on Earth in human
Yes.
history of what I call these kind of big shakeups where the next human transformation kind of evolves. And I think that's what this part, call me crazy or whatever, but I think, again, I don't know what it is. I'm not, but I think there's something happening. There's something happening. People, like you're saying, everybody's talking about it. Everybody's got a new sense of self awareness, that there's got to be more. The word I have not heard, the word joy. I hear the word joy now more in a day than I think I had heard in the past 30 years. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Whether you're, again, and maybe that's just because I'm
Yeah.
in that coach life space, but everybody, I've got profitable joy, I've got the joy business revolution, I've got like everything is about
Mm-hmm.
where's your joy? There's more to this human
Yeah.
experience
Yeah.
than clocking in and out. Figure it out.
Absolutely. I don't think you're crazy at all for the cyclical, the conversation about the cycles in human evolution and human experience on earth is complete. That's completely what's
Yeah.
happening right now. And if you can step back and take that kind of perspective on it, everything looks very
Yeah.
different than just taking it at face
Mm-hmm.
value.
Yep. Yeah. And again, that's,
Yeah, I absolutely believe that's what's happening. And it needs to. I mean, that's kind of,
mm-hmm.
wildfires are a terrible thing. And at the same time, there's a reason they happen other than just,
Yeah.
some
But
idiot
there,
left their
yeah. And not,
fire burning.
and again, you're right. It's horrible. People lose their homes, they lose their lives. Like, I understand the tangible cost. But the flip
Right.
side of that bigger picture is the Earth's taking back, however, whatever they need to take back, because
It's
we've
a clearing.
overreached. We've overreached.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
clearing, and they actually have to
Yeah.
happen for the next stage of
Life to, yeah,
life
to come through. Exactly.
to
So,
burst into
yeah.
what it is. Yeah.
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 So, and I think
Wow, what an
that's a
awesome
big,
conversation
like I said,
today.
and I've gotten more into my, human design and alchemy and all the, like it, because I'm just so
Mhm.
fortunate to get to work with amazing thought leaders and coach leaders who do retreats, that I get to sample
Mhm.
all of their, I get modalities, all their methodologies. And while they're all
Uh-huh.
fairly different, because I get to look back in perspective, they're all at the same core, right? It's all like,
Yeah, well, it's helping you figure out who you are, what you're
yeah,
doing
whether you
here,
call it, yeah,
why we're on
chakras,
earth.
human design, energy, whatever you call it, they're all related. It's all the same. It's all the same book, just
Mhm.
different chapters of the same book.
Right, different paths to the same
Yep,
center.
exactly. So whatever resonates with you, I say dive into it and look into it, and it gets you way beyond fine when you are able to take some of that bigger
Yeah.
perspective. Um, like I said, I've been so
Yes.
fortunate to
Yes.
find this path, for what I get to support others in. Um, like I said, it brings me so much joy and keeps me moving forward, and has given me such a wonderful perspective about the human experience to hopefully for my next 30 or 40 years, you know, live much better
Right.
than fine. Yeah.
Yes. That's what we're here for. What is the song that you need to listen to? You might not need to. What is the song that you do listen
That was
to when you need an extra boost
So
of
for those who don't know,
energy?
Lori asks us this question before we show up, and my answer was that is the hardest question. Music is in my soul. It is my language. So it is anything from
I'm
yeah.
I'm the same, so I
Depends.
know
It's
that when I
anything
ask that
from I
question,
love it.
I
It's
am.
anything from Eminem. Sometimes it's an Eminem, Beyonce, Pink,
Yep.
Pink kind of day.
Yeah.
Other times it is Disney tunes. You know, like the Disney inspiration song of the movie. I love Go the Distance and some of
Okay.
those core Disney songs.
Yeah.
The Moana theme, How Far Will I Go is a good one. Like that really gets me lately. Yeah, so again, it's the Disney, what I call the fireworks songs for Disney. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Yes. Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
and again, honestly, with anything with Pink or Eminem, I can't go wrong with.
Have you seen Pink in
Three
concert?
times. She's
Oh my gosh, best
amazing.
concert ever.
She's amazing. Amazing. Yeah,
Amazing.
she's amazing.
Yes.
I have never seen Eminem live, and I know now that he's aged up. I don't know if that will ever happen, but yes, we will. We see Pink anytime she comes through. Yeah, she's amazing.
Yeah. Awesome. Lastly, if someone wants to continue a conversation with you, what's the best way for them
I
to
hope
reach you?
that I have made it very easy. My website is Flo-Yo Travel because my last name is Flores-Young. So it's Floyo. It's my last names together. Floyotravel.com. And on there, there's free resources for retreat planning. There's a book a call link. There's a bunch of tips and tricks. It's all right there.
Awesome. Well, I will have a link to that in the show notes. For joining me today on Fine is a four-letter
Thank
word,
you, Lori. This
Amy.
was so much fun. I love talking to you. We could do this all day, but thank you
Same
so much.
here. All day, but we'll end it here.
Thank
Take care.